Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of 10,000 Roads to Financial Independence. Today, I have Madelaine Claire Weiss. Madelaine is a Harvard-trained licensed psychotherapist, mindset expert, and board-certified executive, a career life coach who helps people master their minds so they can maintain and enjoy satisfaction and success in all areas of their life. She is a co-author in the Handbook of Stressful Transition Across the Lifespan, and best-selling author of the Getting to Great 5-Step Strategy for Work and Life. Madelaine is a former group mental health practice administrative director, a corporation chief organizational development officer, and the associate director of the Anatomical Gift Program at Harvard Medical School, where she spoke before the joint committees in the status of women. As a corporate trainer, Madelaine designed and developed programs for such diverse organizations such as Harvard Medical School, Legal Service Corporation, and AARP. She has been featured on NBC, Bold TV, Fox TV, appears frequently as a podcast guest expert, including Major, Lindsay, and Africa Erasing the Stigma, has written for the Thrive Global, Authority Magazine's Editors List, UpJourney, My Perfect Financial Advisor, and conducted webinars for such organizations as American Bar Association and Harvard Law School Association MA. Wow, Madelaine, you're so decorated. Welcome to our show today. We're really glad to have you today.
Love that. And thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
That's awesome. So I want to kind of give a sneak peek for our guest today. So Madelaine actually come prepared with maybe a little bit 5-minute exercise for us coming from her book, the great Getting to Great 5-Step Strategy for Work and Life. We'll kind of get to that exercise later in the show. So stay on that. So Madelaine, we always ask our guest when we first started is what incidents or people that in your life when you're thinking back really shaped you as the entrepreneur who you are today?
I told you in the green room, that's a really easy question for me. So we'll just jump in the deep end here. When I was 15 years old, my father, who was 42 years old, died suddenly. The doctors said he died of a cerebral hemorrhage. My mother said he died of work. So no surprise. And I mentioned to you earlier, I'm the queen of pivoting.
Yeah.
And we can unpack that a little bit. But no surprise, I wound up here today with this mindset that if I can help one little girl or boy's mommy or daddy find that happier, healthier, productive life, I'm doing what I was put here to do. Mommy or daddy or anybody at all for that matter. I spoke when I was at Harvard Medical School before the first year medical class each year. And there were these beautiful young people who were so stressed. And I would ask them to fall still, and they would.
Yeah.
Which I could never believe. There were hundreds of them. And then all these otherwise, faces filled with angst would just become so peaceful. And I thought, the first time I saw it, I thought, my God, I just touched every one of them. And when you think about how many lives each one of them is going to touch over the course of their careers, it was very moving.
Yeah, that's a very impactful statement. Like that's a very impactful moment, Madelaine. Like I think a lot of people find that their meanings in other people's, like the impact they made to other people's life. So your father has passed away when you were 15. There's probably a lot of mental struggle you have to kind of go through. So how did you deal with that? Yeah.
I'm smiling at that because some of your listeners, and maybe you do or don't know the book Madelaine. And
Madelaine,
that little
the French girl. Yeah.
And it said, she was not afraid of mice. She loved winter, snow, and ice. To the tiger in the zoo, Madelaine just said poo poo. And
Right.
so did I too many times to my dad. I was kind of mouthy. So for a long time, I went around, kids make up things in their head. Well, we all make up things in our heads, but for a long time, I would always say he died of me. One day, breaking down with my mother in the cemetery, that was when she said to me, "No, honey, it wasn't you. It was work."
Yeah, it was work.
So
Yeah, so how did that, like, obviously, hopefully that kind of lifted in terms of, the stress that you have kind of put on yourself. And then how did that kind of like transition into, your life? Like, maybe that's
yeah.
why you took the choice of being a physical psychotherapist, which
Well,
is
I
the
didn't do that right away. I was very
uh-huh.
concerned. I was concerned about my mom.
Hmm.
My mom had worked for my dad's business. My dad was a
Gotcha.
business owner, and she was a whiz with numbers. It was crazy. Like she'd sit there with the payroll, which back in the day, she just sat there with the numbers and ching, ching, like
Oh, like the
all
calculator. Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
her head. I don't think she had a
Wow.
calculator.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
it was amazing. But anyway, when he passed away, the business folded and she went to work in a steel factory.
Wow.
And I was worried about her and I wanted to help. And I remember beating the doors on the streets trying to get a job and not realizing, like it was like nobody said yes. And I had this fantasy, again, the child's mind. I had this fantasy that my mom was going to all the stores and saying, no, 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 don't hire her. But I realized later I was probably underage,
Uh-huh.
you know.
At
So
15, no.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I graduated, I wanted to not spend 4 years in college. I wanted to be able to work as soon as I could. So I
Mhm.
went to the University of Pennsylvania Graduate Hospital School of Medical
Mhm.
Technology. And in a year and a half, I got my first job in a clinical chemistry lab.
Wow.
So I was studying
That's fast.
anatomy and physiology and serology and hematology and things I can barely even pronounce now. And then I went on to, this is why I call myself the queen of pivot. Then I went on to the USDA Biological Control Lab. I worked at Drexel University's cardiac catheter lab, but there was always this pull to the people.
Yeah.
So eventually I got a degree in social work
Hmm.
so I could start working, not with
With people.
blood and guts and bugs and whatever
Yeah.
I was
The
working with,
physical part of medical.
but
Yeah.
actually really work with people.
Yeah.
And then I somehow became an administrator and said to myself, "Self, you have no idea what you're doing." So I went to business school and got an MBA and came out with, in the meantime, I was also a psychotherapist, but I was
Right.
putting the corporation on the couch, as they say. So I
Yeah.
was a chief organizational development officer for a period of time.
Hmm.
But I really made the final, I think this is my final pivot. I
Hmm.
talk a lot in the book
Hmm.
about knowing who you are and finding the right environmental fit.
Yeah.
And I know what that takes and I know what that feels like. And it feels wonderful because I feel like I'm there.
Yeah. So after we have interviewed over 50 guests on our podcast,
Yeah.
I've noticed that for a lot of entrepreneurs, it's this journey of finding themselves is really important. And then I'm glad that you mentioned it in your book and you kind of talk about that. Now, kind of really high level, I think this is obvious a lifelong exercise we're doing here, but I'm trying to condense it for our listener over here. After all these years kind of soul searching, what are kind of some of the things that you can share with our audience so that help them finding themselves a little faster?
Okay. Some of them are not going to like this because they're probably sick of hearing this, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Yeah.
Meditation and what that does. See, I believe we all have everything we need
Mhm.
inside of us
Yeah.
to get from here to, like I say, great
Right.
in our life, but we can't hear it.
Yeah.
There's all this wisdom, there's all this knowing, there's all this guidance, but we can't hear it. And we
Why?
can't hear it because there's so much noise in there.
Uh-huh.
So when you quiet on the inside, it's really amazing how decisions are not that hard anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because they sort of great ideas and decisions bubble up and you can hear them.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah. And then to start with meditation, a lot of people like my
I've been
grandma.
doing that for decades, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. My grandma, I was like, oh, maybe you should meditate and decide what you want to do. And she's like, oh, I tried meditate before. It didn't really work. So to kind of start like getting ease into that, what would you suggest someone kind of do? Like, should they start with a shorter period of time and then kind of over the time prolong that period? What is the optimal?
Okay. So I want everyone to know that on my website at madelaneweiss.com, there's a box. If you scroll down a little bit and it says complimentary mind management exercises, and they're free there.
Uh-huh.
And my favorite is the power breathing exercise, which takes less than 30 seconds.
Wow.
And what that does is it resets the mind and throws you up into the higher brain where the more executive functioning is and where you really want your decisions to be made from. So it kind of calms, it stimulates the polyvagal nerve and the parasympathetic nervous system and all of that. And it really calms you in a way that throws you upstairs. So you kick it upstairs.
Yeah.
And that takes less than 30 seconds.
Wow, that's amazing.
Instruction. There's a one-page instruction.
Yeah, so we'll definitely put that the website. Madelaine, can you repeat for us down on our show notes over here for our listener to kind of listen to? Yeah,
it's madelaneweiss.com. There's also, these are all one sheet. There's also something called the breathing room, which is a more fuller-fledged meditation. And there are apps all over the place. I mean, it's very easy to get your hands on it. And when people are just starting, it's the same exact thing they say about physical exercise. When they say, should I do this? Should I do that? The answer is always, you should do the one that you'll actually do.
Yeah.
So if you want to start with 30 seconds, great. You want to start with 3 minutes, great. Whatever. There's something that I like that's called the Goldilocks principle. So the Goldilocks principle means that the brain likes novelty, it likes new stuff, it likes action, it likes to see there's something going on here.
Yeah.
But if it's too big, too much, it shuts down.
Right.
Too much. So it has to be just big enough to excite the motivational centers of the brain so that you stay excited and keep going, but not so big that it shuts you down. So not too hot, not too cold, but just right. And that's why they call it the Goldilocks principle.
Nice. That's awesome. I will definitely check it out as well. I do meditation as well. I found that's being very helpful. Again, sticking with the habits is often the challenge over here, which is kind of making sure that, like you said, do the exercise that you actually will do is the most important one.
You said something I think is really important. You said that, was it your grandmother or somebody said to you, I don't think it worked. We have to be really careful how we define whether it's working or not.
Right.
First of all, you don't get a grade for doing it. You either do it or you don't do it.
Right.
People also think that they're not supposed to have any thoughts. The mind is on automatic. It wanders 70% of the time. It's all over the place. And every time you notice that, you win. So the win isn't that you go brain dead.
Yes.
The win is that you start noticing what's
your thoughts, like be able to kind of elevate it out and observe that there's actually the thought process
going on.
Yeah.
This is what's going on in there. It's astounding.
Yeah.
What kind of junk is in there, actually?
That's awesome. So you're meditated your way to deciding to do the pivot. And then that's kind of like a long process over here too. And how do you know this is not your last pivot? How did you know that this is maybe your final pivot? Maybe. I guess the key word is maybe. Yeah.
I said to somebody last night, I was with a group of people in a philosophy class, and they were all talking about how they were going to apply philosophy to their lives, to be better or to make it better, like for continuous improvement, let's say.
Right.
And when they got to me, I said, honestly, I feel like I'm on maintenance, and I really appreciate the reinforcement because I consider myself an instrument for the use of the people I care about, which includes my clients and my family and my friends and so on. And I feel like we need to keep the instrument polished and clean and fine-tuned. Mm-hmm. And the study of philosophy helps me to do that, and other people can do that in other ways. So I like the maintenance, I like the reinforcement.
Yeah.
But there is this sense of being there. Mm-hmm. I always say to my clients,
be present. Yeah.
Where do you want to go? No. Oh. Actually having achieved.
Like at the stage, the optimal stage where you enjoy. Right. Yeah. Life.
So the title of the book is Getting to Great.
Yeah. So Getting to Great. For working. And then so you're at the stage of where your optimal is. And that's
I feel that way.
Right. And then I think that's really the essence of our audience here is like we're trying to pursue for financial independence. But it's not really the financial independence people are going after. It's that equilibrium of happiness. This is where I want to be, that I feel satisfied and surround myself with who I choose to be with. That's kind of more the important
That's part. A really important point. Also, I study pre-Hindu tradition, and the Hindus talk about good company, and you just put your finger on how important it is, who gets in our lives and who doesn't. And you were saying that it takes a certain amount of financial independence, but it takes a certain amount of emotional independence also to get that picky.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm now kind of curious. I'm gonna ask this question. You should definitely read the books, right? Getting to Great, 5-Step Strategy to Work and Life. Now, like, I'm a shortcut person. I was trying to get to the shortcut. So it's like, Madelaine, describe to us maybe the 5 steps, like on the higher level. What are they?
Okay, so I had asked myself at some point, I looked at all the people who are my clients, and I'm thinking, God, these people are doing so great, but they're so different from each other in age, occupation, gender, ethnicity, whatever. And I thought, but what do they all have in common?
Right.
That's the secret sauce here. Mm-hmm. And I came up with that they all went through this process, and I'd be happy to unpack that for you. So it's G.R.E.A.T, and you can only imagine how thrilled I was to see that it fit into an acronym.
Perfect.
As good as that, right?
Yeah.
The G is for grounding in the belief that it doesn't have to be like this, that we all have everything we need inside of us to live really great lives. A lot of people don't believe they can make a great living and live a great life all at the same time.
Yeah.
But you can, and you have everything you need. When people come to me, pretty much they just want some of the pain to stop.
Yeah.
They're not really believing they can have a great life. So I hold that knowing, because I see them doing it one after another. So I hold that space for them until they can step into it and own it and run with it, till they're grounded, G for grounded, in it themselves. You were mentioning earlier the importance of recognizing who you are. So the first line of the book is, a great life depends on a great fit between who we are and the environments in which we work and live. Well, if you need a fit between who we are and the environments we immerse ourselves in, we need to know who we are. And a lot of people can have a better grip on that than they sometimes do. So the R is for recognizing who we are, not who someone else said we should be, or even who we may have thought all along we should be, but
Mhm.
what are true interests and values and aspirations and challenges, who we really are. And then
Mhm.
with a, so that's GR, then with a greater sense of that under our belts, they go exploring. So they start dreaming and spinning all kinds of ideas about,
Yeah.
I can do this. And I was talking to someone the last hour and she could get a PhD, but maybe she wanted to go into candle making, like,
Yeah.
so we just throw it open. The sky's the limit. Dream away.
Right.
And sometimes, it's possibilities they always dreamed about, but thought, nah, I can't do that. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's stuff they never even thought of.
Right.
But we can't stay stuck in dreamland, to use
Right.
the buzzword. We have to manifest. So
Yeah.
we have to do something.
Mhm.
So William James said, action doesn't guarantee happiness, but there's no happiness without it. So it's GRE for exploring, A for action.
Yeah.
You have to take some action on that. Otherwise, you're just in la la land.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then no sooner do we start acting on these things than the normal, natural, predictable, expectable, inherent resistance to change, more often than not, crops up.
Mhm.
And so the T is for tackling that resistance.
Mhm.
So that's the GREAT.
Nice. That's awesome. And I almost feel like I hear you talking about this, and it almost kind of manifested in like a lot of us, some are members and students on Easy FIU. This is actually like our thought process organically is to be grounded and understanding what your vision of that reaching financial independence look like for you. It can't just be reaching financial independence for reaching financial independence sake, but it's to achieve a certain vision of your life. So you have to kind of envision that too, but believing in yourself that you can actually get there. So the ground, the recognize part, and then the envision part, which is the explore part, what you talked about over here, and then it's taking actions, making sure that we're tackling them and helping in almost any type of mentoring system. This is kind of what you try to get supports on, because
Yeah.
you may not have the tools to do it, but you need the people like you, Madelaine, expert on helping their mind to get to where they need it to be. Yeah.
There's a wonderful neuro-linguistic programming exercise for exactly what you're talking about. And
Yeah.
it goes by VAK. So I do, and I will tell you right now what that is. I do this exercise with people where they imagine like they're looking at a movie screen.
Yeah.
And the V is for visual, the A is for auditory, and the K is for kinesthetic. So I asked them, and this is kind of where you were just going now.
Yeah.
I asked them, what do you see? What does that look like? What's the expression on your face? What are you wearing? How are you walking?
Yeah.
And then what are you hearing?
Yeah.
And then how do you feel? What's the experience of it like that for you? And the NLP, neuro-linguistic programming premise, is that you sync that, you immerse, you bathe the brain in that, because the brain doesn't know the difference pretty much between what's real and what's not real. Right. So you kind of program your brain in that, and it keeps you directed. It keeps you moving in the right direction. Right. So that through this GREAT process, there is the vision that you're talking about is actually formed. It doesn't mean we can't tweak it, but they begin to get a sense of this is really possible.
Yeah, this is possible. I mean, like you just said it over there, which is this is really possible, because we kind of going through our lives. A lot of them is kind of sad. When I'm looking at my grandma's, generation, etc., they kind of put this no first. Like, don't do this, no, like it almost kind of live a whole life of restraint and not really getting to what is possible for them. Like any dreams is kind of really possible if they allow themselves to be immersed in there. Like,
in all fairness to your grandma, I think the brain is really programmed more to keep us safe.
Right.
Than to show us than
They
to
went
show
through.
us a
Yeah.
good time.
Yeah.
So that kind of precaution
Mm.
is built in. And then I think there are all kinds of cultural issues
Yep.
that really lay it on
Right.
just to keep people safe. So that's why we use that Goldilocks principle. So at the end of every session, people carve out action steps, one or more action steps.
Mhm.
And the principle is not too big, not too little, but just right, because the brain gets scared
Yeah. Yeah.
when it's saying no, 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 and you think you're going to just overrule that whole thing. It's really better to do teeny little baby steps, one
Big
after
steps.
another. And before you know it, you got used to it and you're not scared and you're there.
Right. It's kind of like a getting successful after each little steps. Like you're like a positive reinforcement of that. Versus if you're trying to lose like 50 pounds, let's say by 3 months, you're more likely
Right.
going to fail because it's a
Right.
negative reinforcement. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's
Well, when
awesome.
I decided, I was working in Harvard Medical School for 13 years at a very good job when I decided to pivot to this. And I remember I moved from Boston, Cambridge area to here. So they threw me a little goodbye party, some colleagues of mine. And I remember they said to me, like, what do you think? You're just like going to walk into DC and hang out a shingle like, ta-da, I'm here. And
Yeah.
I said, I guess
Yeah.
I'm just going to try
Yeah.
because it just felt so right. And I think when you're quiet and things bubble up and they have that, this feels so right, they just sort of take care of themselves somehow. It feels like
Right.
magic.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's like redirecting yourself and then once you're motivated, you can do a lot of amazing things. For sure. So you mentioned to me, Madelaine, before in our green room, you mentioned to me about the relationships with money in the chapter that you had in your book, getting to great 5-step strategy for work and life. You mentioned about this relationship of money. I feel like that's really relevant to our audience over here because oftentimes people that listen to our show, they kind of focus on the mechanism, the how-tos to get to the financial independence, with oftentimes is associated with money. But I think very few of us thinking about that as a relationship with money. Can you kind of unpack that a little bit and share with us some exercise kind of thinking about this?
I put this in the book, which was published recently, but I did it myself many years ago. And I really feel like it was a kick in the pants, an eye-opening, life-changing thing. And I told you, it's so simple and kind of funny, but really made a difference. So it's short enough. If you don't mind, I'll read it to you.
Yeah.
Okay. So the exercise is called Relationship Building for Your Money and You. A wise mentor once said to me, we have to take care of those we count on to take care of us. Have you ever thought of your money as existing to take care of you? Have you thought of yourself as endowed with the right and the responsibility to take care of it so that it can take care of you? What kind of relationship do you have with your money? This exercise is designed to help you identify who you are in relationship to your money and to begin to assess how happy and healthy you believe that relationship is. So to practice, find a quiet spot, make yourself comfortable closing your eyes or simply gazing downward. Do you want to do this?
Yeah, I will do this.
Okay. And open to the sound around you. Connect with one of the senses by opening to the sound around you. And this helps to settle down your busy mind. You could do this anywhere, anytime. Open your listening to the sound around you. And now imagine that you are on a daytime talk show, having a beneficial conversation with someone you are intimately involved with about what it's like to be in a relationship with you. Only that person is your money. So you're sitting in one chair and your money is sitting in the other chair. And the ground rule is that neither of you can argue with the other's point of view. Today, we're here to listen and learn. Half of America is watching. What will you tell your money about what it's like to be in a relationship with it? Now it's your money's turn to talk. What's your money going to say about what it's like to be in a relationship with you? What do you think you two can work out to improve your relationship and your life going forward? And when you are ready, you come back into the room.
Yeah, it's great. I think from this exercise, I came up to I actually have a pretty good relationship with my money. Well, I think that kind of makes sense because I have reached a financial independence. There is this choose and control with where my money goes and how I want to grow it, and the choice that I have to not have to work for it, right, or be enslaved by it. And so I feel like we're in a happy place. But I can see
Well,
this
when
exercise.
I did it,
Yeah.
we were not.
Oh, you
So
and that. Yeah.
no. So my money complained.
Okay.
My money said to me, you don't enjoy me.
Huh. Okay.
I want to make you happy and you just ignore me. You just let me sit there and you don't like spend me. You don't let me do anything nice for you. You don't enjoy me. And it's really frustrating.
Yeah. So you're saver. I'm guessing like it just sits there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had what we now like call a scarcity mindset.
Uh-huh.
And, that kind of fits with my story. My father died. I didn't know where the money was going to come from. I was worried about
Right.
my mom, the whole thing. So it kind
Yeah.
of, and I realized how right that was. And what is the money for?
Yeah.
And why would I not allow myself to be given to by myself?
Yeah.
And something happened
Uh-huh.
after that where I started spending more. I relaxed about it. And somehow it grew in a way that I now feel like I live in abundance. And it all happened. It's sort of like Adam Smith's invisible hand or something.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
there wasn't a lot of deliberateness. There wasn't a lot of like thinking about it, but
Yeah.
something shifted on the inside that allowed me to ease up with it, and somehow it resulted in
Growing
feeling
more. Yeah. Feeling
yeah.
off. Yeah. And
I
I think
experienced wealth when I never did before, and not a lot. I mean, it grew over the years for sure, but
yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome. And then, so what do you think? Like, let's kind of get into a little technicality over here. What part can you give an example where you kind of let it go, letting that scarcity go, and then it resulting in it growing? Like, it kind of more of a, physical example of it when that incident and when that happened.
Well, what comes to mind with your question is that old saying, you have to spend money to make money. I think there might have been some of that.
Mm-hmm. So investing, that's
So
awesome.
it wasn't just investing in my guilty pleasures, although I forced myself to do more of that, and I only buy very fine quality.
I love that. I love that. I come to a realization.
I wear the same thing all the time.
Yeah.
But it's good.
Yeah, like the minimalism, I think the minimalism thought, and what I come to realization is like minimalism actually costs money. Like even though like on the surface of it looks like, oh, we're minimizing everything, getting rid of it. Oftentimes people mistake that as in like, oh, it's a thrifty thing. But when you look at the minimalism and that whole movement about minimalism, it's actually no, it's about fine quality. Everything that you let into your home has to be you really love. And oftentimes that may cost like double, triple the amount. Like it's kind of like I used to be a bargain shopper, like buying clothes. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna go on the $5 sale and buy like 50 of these pants. But then I don't actually enjoy any of that. So instead of
you.
Right. And instead of spending like $500 on a pair of pants, and then just kind of wears it every day.
It isn't for show as much as it gives you a sense of self-definition that defines you in a way that, they say that the external world is a mirror image of the internal world.
Yeah.
So I completely agree with you that every time I downsized from a 5-bedroom house on 2 acres to a one bedroom condo with 1.5.
Wow.
But there were a couple steps to that.
Yeah.
Every time I offloaded stuff,
Uh-huh.
I just got happier and lighter and happier and lighter and happier and lighter. But I think our point about fine quality
Yeah.
is key there.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Madelaine, I'm enjoying spending time so much with you over here
Me
in the
too.
show.
Me too.
I absolutely would, right after we hang up our phone over here, I'd definitely go check out your book. And in fact, maybe giving that to some of our investors as well as a part of that. Because I think I definitely agree with like a lot of this reaching financial independence where we're in pursuing really of happiness. It's like knowing what happiness look like is really going to be bring you the whether it's financial independence or you're living the life where you want to be. I think that's really the ultimate goal. So really enjoy our conversation here.
Me
And
too.
again, Madeline, how do we find out about you? Can you kind of let us know again? How does our listener find out about you? And I just can't imagine if they become clients or viewers, how much joy they would just have, and
Yeah.
having someone in their life
We
like you
do
are.
ha-
Yeah.
we do have fun, and everybody does really. I mean, the businesses that they're building are just knocking my socks off.
Yeah.
So everything is on my website. I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook and but all the little icons actually are on the website at madeleineWeiss.com. I have an online course that is based on the book, and that's on superpeer.com. And let's see, I do a blog on everyday matters, why we are the way we are and how it matters in everyday life and how we can do it better every week. So if people go to my website and pull down any one of those exercises or just join the mailing list, they'll get that every week for free. And all the exercises are free.
That's awesome. And again, once again, Madelaine, thank you so much for your time. We have really a lot of great time with Madelaine Weiss over here. And definitely check out her book about getting to great 5-step strategy for work and life. I really enjoy our time today here
Me
today.
too.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.